The broken wolf. My tears fell silently as the healer delivered the crushing news that would define my existence. I'm sorry, Iris Blackwood. The tests are conclusive. Not only will your wolf never emerge, but you will never bear children. Those words echoed in the nursery I had painted myself with such hope. The tiny clothes I had folded with trembling hands would never be worn. My arms ached for what they would never hold, the children that would complete me, make me worthy in my mate's eyes. Each night, I listened to Greer's footsteps fade as he sought warmth in another woman's bed. In the darkness, I touched the cold sheets beside me, whispering apologies to the children I would never give him. The pack members averted their eyes when I passed, my failure contagious, my pain too uncomfortable to acknowledge. The white streak in my raven hair branded me as incomplete, unworthy, a visual reminder of everything I lacked. I curled into myself each night, a vessel meant to nurture life but left hollow and purposeless. But something was about to happen that would make them all wonder. The weakest would shelter the strongest. The voiceless would speak words that would change everything. My emptiness wasn't a void, it was a fortress built precisely for what was coming. And those who laughed loudest at my brokenness would be the first to beg for what only I could provide when the silver-eyed child arrived. The scent hit me first as I knelt in the herb garden that morning, vanilla and night-blooming jasmine, cutting through the earthy smell of dew-dampened soil. My worn gloves stilled among the wolfsbane leaves, my heart stuttering with impossible recognition. Celine. My cousin had been missing for over a year, presumed dead after fleeing an arranged mating with the Eastern Pack's brutal alpha. Yet her distinctive fragrance lingered in the air like a ghost, taunting my senses with hope I couldn't afford. Couldn't even keep her mate's interest, let alone whelp his pups, carried a voice from the nearby training grounds, deliberately loud enough for me to hear. My hands trembled before I steadied them, returning to the methodical separation of healing plants from weeds. Such comments were familiar companions now. The words might change, but the sentiment remained as constant as the silver-white streak that marked my difference, my failure. 8 years had passed since I came of age without my wolf emerging. 5 years since Greer had taken me as mate in a political arrangement with my family. 3 years since he had publicly declared me barren and taken his first of many lovers. I gathered my herbs into the weathered basket, keeping my gaze fixed on the ground as I traversed the outer perimeter of pack territory. A group of hunters returned through the main gates, their laughter cutting off abruptly as they noticed me. Greer walked at their center, his powerful frame commanding attention, his scent of wood smoke and dominance cutting through all others like a blade. Beside him, Amanda Foxglove pressed herself closer, her triumphant gaze sliding over me with undisguised contempt. I turned away, taking the long path to avoid them, the weight of my empty womb and silent wolf a constant ache beneath my ribs. My small room at the territory's edge welcomed me with its familiar isolation, meticulously organized herbs hanging from ceiling beams, each possession carefully placed in my only domain in a world where I held no value. The afternoon passed in the precise routine I had constructed to minimize contact with the pack, delivering medicinal preparations during training hours, collecting permitted foods during hunting time, bathing in the creek upstream from the communal pools. When I returned to my room as dusk painted the mountains purple, exhaustion weighed heavy on my bones, though it never quite masked the deeper hollowness inside. I pushed open my door and froze. That scent again, stronger now, unmistakable, lingered in the air of my sanctuary. My heart galloped against my ribs as I searched the tiny space, finding nothing until I lifted my pillow. There, sealed with wax and bearing my cousin's distinctive scent, lay a letter. My fingers trembled as I broke the seal, unfolding the paper with reverent care. Dearest Iris, the familiar handwriting began. I need your help. Tomorrow's solar eclipse marks our only chance. Meet me at the old hunting cabin at midnight. Tell no one. Your emptiness is not a curse, but a gift. Lives depend on your coming alone. I clutched the paper to my chest, my carefully constructed world suddenly fracturing around me. Celine alive. Celine needing me. Celine saying my greatest shame was actually a gift. These words scattered my thoughts like autumn leaves in a storm. While beyond my window, clouds gathered, obscuring the waxing moon that had never called to my wolf. For the first time in years, something sparked in my chest, something dangerous and warm that felt strangely like hope. The eclipse meeting. Morning arrived with oppressive heaviness, the air dense with the coming eclipse as I moved mechanically through my chores, my mind racing with questions that had no answers. "You're distracted today," observed Elder Thornwood, his ancient eyes shrewd as he watched me work at the healer's cabin. I forced my expression to neutrality, my heart rate accelerating beneath his penetrating gaze. "Just tired," I murmured, keeping my focus on the herbs I was bundling. "The changing moon disrupts my sleep." The elder hummed noncommittally. "The defective ones often sense things others miss," he said, his tone making it impossible to determine if he meant it as insult or observation. The cracks let in the light. With that cryptic statement, he shuffled away, leaving me wondering if he somehow knew my plans. When the evening meal bell rang, I stayed away as usual but took extra care with what little food they allowed me, selecting items that would travel well and slipping them into my pockets when the kitchen staff turned their backs. I packed a small bundle, a change of clothes, my most potent herbs, the knife I kept hidden beneath a floorboard. The coming eclipse would provide perfect cover. The pack would be gathered for the traditional howl song. I would position myself at the circle's edge, then slip away when the moon vanished. As shadows began to creep across the moon, I took my position in the gathering circle, hood pulled low over my distinctive hair. Around me, pack members pressed closer, their wolves sensing the temporary extinction of their celestial mother. I felt the familiar hollow ache of exclusion, my own inner wolf forever silent, unmoved by the lunar spell that entranced the others. When darkness swallowed the moon completely, I backed away from the circle, the pack's unified howl covering the soft crunch of pine needles beneath my boots. Freedom tasted strange on my tongue as I moved through the darkened forest, following paths remembered from childhood adventures. The old hunting cabin waited in a small clearing, its weathered logs silver in the eclipse's strange twilight. As I approached, that familiar scent grew stronger, Celine's unmistakable signature. But beneath it lurked something else that made my dormant instincts stir uneasily for the first time in my life, the metallic tang of blood and the sweet sour scent of approaching death. The abandoned cabin loomed before me, memories flickering through my mind of Celine and me as children, playing at being hunters and explorers in these woods. Our laughter had echoed through the trees then. Those carefree days seemed to belong to someone else now, someone who hadn't yet learned what it meant to be broken. I hesitated at the threshold, my fingers curling around the worn wooden door handle. Drawing a deep breath, I pushed the door open. The interior was dimly lit by a single lantern, casting long shadows across the rough-hewn floor. My eyes found her immediately, and the sight stole the breath from my lungs. Celine, once so vibrant and strong, lay on a narrow cot in the corner, her golden skin now ashen, her bright eyes dulled with pain. But it was the small bundle cradled in her arms that truly shocked me. "You came," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I knew you would." I rushed to her side, falling to my knees beside the cot. Up close, the scent of illness was overwhelming, silver poisoning, my healer's senses told me. Deadly to our kind, and by the look of her, already deep in her system. "Celine, what happened? Who did this to you?" My hands hovered helplessly, wanting to help but not knowing how. "No time," she said, each word clearly an effort. "Take him, Iris. You must protect him." For the first time, I truly looked at the bundle in her arms. A child, a newborn with tufts of dark hair and eyes that seemed too aware for one so young. He watched me with an intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. "This is Luca," Celine continued, her voice strengthening momentarily with maternal pride. "My son. Damon's heir." The name struck me like a physical blow. Damon, the Eastern Pack's alpha, Celine's mate, a wolf whose reputation for ruthlessness was legendary. "Celine, I don't understand. If this is Damon's son, why are you here? Why aren't you with your mate?" A bitter smile twisted her once beautiful features. Because Luca has the shadow wolf, Iris. And Damon would destroy his wolf essence if he found him. The shadow wolf. I had heard whispers of such things, rare wolf spirits that manifested with unusual powers. In ancient times, they were revered. In our more civilized age, they were often seen as threats to pack stability. But why come to me? I know nothing of children. I can't even shift. How could I possibly protect him from an alpha? Celine's fingers dug into my wrist with surprising strength. Because your emptiness is his sanctuary. Don't you see? Without a wolf of your own, you can mask his presence, hide his nature until he's strong enough. Her voice dropped lower, more urgent. The silver was no accident, Iris. I was poisoned to draw out the shadow wolf, to weaken Luca. There are those who fear what he might become. The baby, Luca, stirred in her arms, making a small sound that wasn't quite human, wasn't quite wolf. Celine's attention immediately shifted to him, her expression softening with a love so fierce it was almost painful to witness. My beautiful boy, she whispered, pressing her lips to his forehead. You will change everything. She looked back at me, her eyes suddenly clear and piercing. Choose now, Iris. Return to the man who shames you daily, or save my son. I have no right to ask this of you, but there's no one else I trust. Her words struck something deep within me, a chord of recognition, of understanding. How many times had I dreamed of escape, of purpose beyond my daily humiliation? Yet fear had always held me back. What life could a defective she-wolf build alone? But looking at Luca's small face, something shifted inside me. A fierce protective instinct I never knew I possessed surged to life. What do I do? I asked, my decision made the moment the words left my lips. Relief washed over Celine's features. With trembling hands, she held out a sealed envelope. Take this. Read it when you're safely away. There are 2 more letters hidden at these coordinates. She recited numbers that I committed to memory. The 3rd will explain everything. She transferred Luca to my arms, and the weight of him, so small yet so significant, sent an unexpected wave of emotion through me. He fit against me as if he belonged there, his tiny fingers curling reflexively around one of mine. Go north, Celine instructed, her voice weakening again. Beyond our territories. Find a human town called Willow Creek. Stay there until the first snow. She reached out, her hand cool and light as it brushed my cheek. You are stronger than you know, Iris. You always have been. I wanted to protest, to insist she come with us, but the finality in her eyes stopped me. This was goodbye. I'll protect him with my life, I promised, my voice breaking. He will know of his brave mother. A ghost of a smile touched Celine's lips. His life is your life now. Remember that. Her eyes drifted closed, her breathing growing more labored. I should have stayed with her, held her hand as she passed. But the urgency in her final instructions propelled me to my feet. Luca sensed the change, his tiny face scrunching with the threat of a cry. Somehow, instinctively, I knew how to rock him, how to make soothing sounds that eased his distress. With one last painful look at my cousin, my childhood protector, my only true friend, I stepped out into the eclipse-darkened forest. The weight of Celine's body on that cot seemed to echo in my bones, while the weight of her son in my arms provided a counterbalance of life against death. I moved swiftly through the trees, away from the only home I had ever known, away from a lifetime of shame and neglect. Behind me, the moon slowly emerged from shadow, casting silver light on a path I had never dreamed of taking. Ahead lay uncertainty and danger, but also possibility. For the first time in my life, I was needed, essential. And that feeling, foreign as it was, gave me strength I didn't know I possessed. The escape. Luca's cry pierced the pre-dawn silence of my tiny hideaway, his small body arching with hunger as I frantically mixed the goat's milk formula I had bartered for yesterday. Shoo, little one, I whispered, bouncing him awkwardly while stirring. Just a moment more. 3 days had passed since I fled with Celine's child. 3 days of desperate improvisation in the abandoned trapper's cabin I had found, its isolation providing safety while I gathered courage for the journey ahead. Luca fussed impatiently. I tested the milk's temperature on my wrist, then cradled him against my chest, offering the bottle. His silvery eyes locked with mine as he drank, tiny hand pressed against my collarbone. His trust threatened to unravel me completely. I had opened Celine's first letter that first night, her words filling in the gaps, her forbidden love for Damon, the ancient prophecy about a shadow wolf, the silver poisoning after Luca's birth. The northern pack had discovered her betrayal and hunted her. Her final warning chilled me, trust no one from either pack. His shadow wolf makes him vulnerable. An empty vessel like you is his only protection. I needed supplies from my quarters, medicines, clothing, emergency funds. The risk was enormous, but necessary. Dawn spilled through the windows as I finished feeding Luca. I burped him, then swaddled him against my chest in a carrier fashion from an old shawl. Just this one last risk, I promised, securing my cloak over us both. The familiar path back to pack territory felt foreign now. I slipped through lesser-known trails, Luca mercifully quiet against my chest. The compound appeared unchanged, same buildings, same scents, same rhythm of pack life continuing without noticing my absence. My room remained untouched. Working swiftly, I gathered essentials, my small savings, medicinal herbs, extra clothing. Luca stirred, making soft sounds that sent panic through me. The door crashed open. What's that smell? Greer's massive frame filled the doorway, his scent clouded with confusion and anger. His eyes narrowed, tracking from my travel bag to the bundle against my chest. Is that a child? The contempt in his voice sparked something new inside me. Not fear, but fury. Yes, I said simply, straightening despite my racing heart. Whose bastard are you hiding? He stepped closer, nostrils flaring. That's not pack scent. He's mine now. The words came out stronger than I felt. Greer's laugh was cruel. Yours? You can't even produce your own whelp. What desperate fool would trust their spawn to a broken she-wolf? Someone who understood what you never could, I replied, surprising myself with my calm tone. That strength isn't always about size or dominance. His face darkened. You will surrender that child to the elders for proper placement. Pack law demands. Pack law. I interrupted, taking a step toward him instead of away. The same pack law that allowed you to humiliate me publicly. To take lovers while denying me even basic respect. That pack law. For a moment, he looked genuinely shocked. I had never spoken back to him before. You forget yourself, female. You are nothing without this pack. Nothing without me. You're right, I said, shouldering my pack. I was nothing here. But that changes now. I moved toward the door, but Greer blocked my path. You're not leaving with that child. Try to stop me. Something in my voice, or perhaps in my scent, made him hesitate. For the first time in our mating, I saw uncertainty in his eyes. Luca chose that moment to make a soft cooing sound. Greer's gaze snapped to the bundle, his expression shifting to something like recognition. Shadow wolf, he breathed, backing away. You're carrying a shadow wolf. The fear in his voice confirmed what I had only suspected. Even the strong feared what they didn't understand. Now you see, I said quietly. I was never the weak one, Greer. I was the one chosen to protect something far more powerful than any of you. I walked past him, and he let me go. But as I reached the compound's edge, Amanda Foxglove appeared with 3 other pack members. Her perfect features were twisted with malice. Look what crawled back, she sneered. The barren bitch returns with stolen goods. Stand aside, Amanda, I warned, but she laughed. Make me. You have no wolf, no power, no. She stopped mid-sentence as Luca stirred in his carrier. Even through the swaddling, his presence seemed to press against the air around us. The other wolves whimpered and backed away, but Amanda held her ground, though sweat beaded on her forehead. "What is that thing?" she whispered. "The future," I replied simply. "And you're in my way." For a heartbeat, I thought she might challenge me. Then Luca made that strange sound again, not quite human, not quite wolf, and Amanda stumbled backward as if struck. I walked through them like they were mist. Behind me, shouts erupted as they likely ran to alert the Alpha and Elders. But I was already at the territory's edge, and I knew these woods better than any of them expected. Years of gathering herbs alone had taught me every hidden path, every secret trail. Luca seemed to sense our urgency. He remained quiet as I moved swiftly through the forest, following deer paths and creek beds that would mask our scent. The morning sun climbed higher, but the forest canopy kept us in protective shadow. By midday, we had crossed into neutral territory. I paused by a stream to rest and feed Luca again, my heart still racing from our narrow escape. "We did it, little one," I whispered as he drank. "We're free." But even as relief flooded through me, I knew this was only the beginning. Greer would organize a hunting party. They would follow our trail, and their wolves were stronger and faster than I could ever be on foot. I opened Celine's second letter, hoping for guidance. Her familiar handwriting provided coordinates and a warning: they will come for him. Trust the silver-haired woman in Willow Creek. She knows the old ways. Willow Creek was still 2 days' journey north, through increasingly wild terrain. I would need help to reach it safely. As if summoned by my desperation, I caught a familiar scent on the wind, not pack, but not entirely foreign either. My heart leaped with hope as an ancient woman emerged from the trees, her hair silver-white like my own streak, her eyes holding depths of knowledge I couldn't fathom. "Iris Blackwood," she said, her voice carrying an odd accent. "I have been waiting for you." I clutched Luca closer, defensive instincts flaring. "Who are you?" "A friend of your cousin's. And yours, if you'll have me." She gestured to Luca. "He grows stronger already. The shadow wolf responds to your protection." "How do you know about?" "I know many things, child. Including that Greer's hunters are half a day behind you." Her smile was gentle but her eyes held steel. "Come. There are ways through these mountains that wolves cannot follow, paths that exist only for those who know how to see them." I hesitated for only a moment. Behind us lay certain capture and the loss of everything I had died to protect. Ahead lay uncertainty, but also hope. "Lead the way," I said. The silver-haired woman nodded approvingly. "My name is Elena Whitehawk. And you, Iris Blackwood, are about to discover that being wolfless was never your weakness, it was preparation for your true purpose." As we disappeared into the deep woods, following paths that seemed to shimmer at the edges of vision, I felt something I had never experienced before, the absolute certainty that I was exactly where I belonged, carrying exactly the burden I was meant to bear. Luca slept peacefully against my chest, his small body warm with trust and potential. Whatever lay ahead, we would face it together. The sanctuary. Elena Whitehawk led us through paths that shouldn't have existed, routes that seemed to fold space, where a step forward carried us miles beyond what should have been possible. The silver-haired woman moved with the confidence of someone who understood secrets the rest of the world had forgotten. "How?" I asked breathlessly as we paused beside a crystal-clear stream that definitely hadn't been on any map I'd ever seen. "The old ways," Elena replied simply, dipping her hands in the water and offering them to Luca, who cooed softly at the touch. "Your cousin knew of them. Shadow wolves have always walked between worlds, and those who protect them must learn to do the same." We traveled for what felt like hours but might have been minutes, time itself seeming negotiable on these hidden paths. When we finally emerged into normal space, the human town of Willow Creek spread before us in a valley below, quaint houses with smoke curling from chimneys, a main street lined with shops, and blessed normalcy. "He will be safe here," Elena said, watching as I gazed down at our destination. The old magic still flows strong in this place. Humans may have forgotten it, but it remembers them. Over the following weeks, I discovered the truth of her words. The townspeople of Willow Creek welcomed us without question, a young woman with her infant nephew, seeking a fresh start after family tragedy. The explanation required no supernatural elements, and they asked no uncomfortable questions. Mrs. Henderson, who ran the local boarding house, provided us with a small but comfortable room in exchange for my help with her medicinal herb garden. My pack training proved invaluable in ways I'd never expected. Humans suffered from many of the same ailments as wolves, and my remedies worked just as well on both. Luca thrived in ways that filled my heart with joy and terror in equal measure. During the day, he was a perfectly normal human baby, laughing, sleeping, reaching for toys with chubby fingers. But at night, when the moon was dark, shadows would dance around his crib in patterns that definitely weren't cast by any earthbound light. I read Celine's final letter by lamplight one evening as Luca slept peacefully. Dearest Iris. If you're reading this, you've reached safety, and my son lives because of your courage. The shadow wolf is an ancient bloodline, one that appears only when the world faces great change. Luca will grow to be more than an alpha, he will be a bridge between the old ways and the new. But first, he must learn to be human. The prophet spoke of a shadow wolf raised in love rather than power, taught compassion before conquest. You, with your gentle heart and unshakable strength, are the only one who can give him this gift. Damon will search for him. My mate's hunger for power blinds him to what truly matters. He sees only the threat Luca might pose to his dominance, not the hope he represents for our kind's future. Protect him until his 18th year, when the shadow wolf will fully emerge. Then, and only then, can he choose his path, to rule as his bloodline demands, or to lead with the wisdom you will have taught him. Trust in yourself, cousin. You were never broken. You were chosen. All my love. Celine. Years passed in Willow Creek like a dream I had never dared to imagine. I established myself as the town's herbalist and healer, my reputation growing as people came from neighboring settlements for my remedies. Luca grew into a bright, curious child who called me Mama Iris, and never questioned why he was the only one who could make flowers bloom by touching them or calm frightened animals with a whisper. When he was 7, Elena Whitehawk appeared at our door one autumn evening, her silver hair now streaked with white but her eyes as sharp as ever. It's time, she said simply. Time for what? I asked, though part of me already knew. His training must begin. The shadow wolf stirs earlier in this one. He needs to understand what he is before others discover it. That night, after Luca was asleep, Elena taught me things that challenged everything I thought I knew about the world. She spoke of ancient pacts between humans and wolves, of magic that predated both species, of responsibilities that came with power. You've done well, she said, watching as shadows unconsciously shifted around my sleeping son. He's learned love first. Now he must learn control. The training began gradually. Elena would visit weekly, teaching Luca meditation techniques that helped him manage the shadow wolf's growing influence. She taught me how to recognize the signs of his power emerging and how to guide him through the confusing process of housing two spirits in one body. But peaceful times never last forever. On Luca's 10th birthday, a stranger came to town. Tall, commanding, with the distinctive bearing of an alpha wolf, he asked questions about a woman traveling with a child. My blood ran cold when Mrs. Henderson described him to me. Damon. Luca's biological father had found us. That night, I packed our few belongings with shaking hands. 10 years of safety were about to end. Mama Iris. Luca appeared in the doorway, his young face creased with worry. Are we leaving? I knelt beside him, taking his small hands in mine. At 10, he was already tall for his age, with his father's strong bone structure but his mother's gentle eyes. The shadows around him danced more frantically when he was upset. Yes, sweetheart. It's time for a new adventure. Is it because of the bad man? The one who makes the air taste angry? My heart clenched. His sensitivity was growing stronger. Yes. But remember what Elena taught you, sometimes running away is the bravest thing you can do. He nodded solemnly, then surprised me by wrapping his arms around my neck. I'm not scared, Mama Iris. As long as we're together, I'm not scared of anything. We slipped out of Willow Creek that night, using Elena's hidden paths once more. But I knew this was only the beginning. Damon had found us once, he would find us again. Over the next few years, we moved constantly. Small towns, remote cabins, always staying ahead of the search parties I could sense growing closer. Luca never complained, adapting to each new place with the resilience of childhood. But I could see the toll it was taking on him, the way he held himself apart from other children, knowing we might disappear at any moment. When he turned 15, everything changed. We were staying in a cabin deep in the Montana wilderness when they found us. Not Damon's hunters, but something worse, rogue wolves who had heard whispers of a shadow wolf and wanted to claim that power for themselves. They attacked at dawn, 6 of them in wolf form, thinking to overwhelm a defenseless human woman and her adopted son. They had no idea what they were facing. Luca stepped in front of me as the first wolf leaped, and for the first time, I saw the shadow wolf fully emerge. Darkness poured from him like liquid night, not threatening but protective, wrapping around us both like armor. The attacking wolves struck that darkness and were simply, elsewhere. Not harmed, but displaced, confused, their aggressive intentions scattered like leaves in a storm. When the last attacker fled, Luca turned to me, his eyes holding depths that hadn't been there moments before. I'm ready, he said quietly. It's time to stop running. I looked at my boy, no longer a boy, really, but a young man whose power had finally awakened, and felt a fierce pride mixed with heartbreaking loss. The child I had raised was becoming something magnificent and terrifying, and I knew our time of hiding was over. Yes, I agreed, pulling him close for what might be the last time he would let me. It's time. But first, we had one more journey to make. Back to where it all began, where the pack that had rejected me would learn the true meaning of strength. The return of legends. 3 years later, I returned to the pack territory that had once been my prison. But I didn't return alone, and I didn't return broken. Luca walked beside me, now 18 and magnificent in his power. The shadow wolf had fully emerged on his birthday, and with it came a presence that made even the mountains seem to hold their breath. He stood 6.5 feet tall, with his father's commanding build but something else, something that spoke of old magic and ancient wisdom. The pack guards at the territory border took one look at us and stepped aside without a word. They could sense what approached, even if they couldn't name it. Word of our arrival spread like wildfire. By the time we reached the central compound, a crowd had gathered. I saw faces I recognized, older now, but still carrying the same mixture of curiosity and cruelty that had defined my youth here. Greer emerged from the pack house, his hair now streaked with gray but his arrogance intact. Amanda Foxglove stood beside him, her beauty hardened by years of bitterness. Behind them came Alpha Marcus, the pack leader who had allowed my humiliation for so long. Well, Greer sneered, though I noticed he kept his distance. The barren bitch returns. And she's brought a pet. Watch your tongue, Luca said quietly, and the very air seemed to darken around him. You're speaking to my mother. The word mother hit me like a physical blow. In all our years together, he had always called me Mama Iris. But now, before the pack that had rejected me, he claimed me with a title that held power, respect, and unshakable love. Your mother. Alpha Marcus stepped forward, his alpha presence pressing against the space between us. Iris Blackwood cannot bear children. This is known. She bore something far more precious than children, Luca replied, his voice carrying harmonics that made several pack members whimper. She bore hope. She bore legend. She bore the future of our kind. Impossible, Amanda spat. She's nothing. Worthless. We all know. She never finished the sentence. Luca didn't move, didn't gesture, but shadows suddenly swirled around Amanda's feet, climbing her legs like living things. Not harming her, but making it very clear they could. My mother, Luca continued conversationally, as if nothing had happened, raised me with love when my birth father would have destroyed me out of fear. She taught me compassion when she could have taught me revenge. She showed me strength when the world showed her only weakness. The shadows receded, leaving Amanda gasping and pale. You want to know what she is? Luca's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the compound. She is the woman who turned emptiness into sanctuary. Rejection into purpose. Pain into power. Alpha Marcus tried to assert his dominance, his wolf rising to meet what he perceived as a challenge. But when his power pressed against Luca's presence, it simply stopped. Like waves breaking against an unmovable shore. You're him, Marcus breathed, recognition dawning in his eyes. The shadow wolf from the prophecies. I am, Luca acknowledged. Raised not by an alpha seeking to control my power, but by a woman who taught me to control myself. He turned to face the assembled pack, and I saw them all step back involuntarily. Not from fear alone, but from instinctive recognition of something greater than themselves. I could challenge your alpha, Luca said simply. I could take this pack by force and rule through dominance, as my bloodline entitles me. But that's not what my mother taught me. He looked back at me, and in his eyes I saw the little boy who used to pick flowers for me, who would curl up in my lap during thunderstorms, who had learned that strength without compassion was just another form of weakness. She taught me that true power lies not in taking what you want, but in protecting what you love. Not in ruling through fear, but in leading through example. A new voice cut through the tension. Well said, young shadow wolf. Elena Whitehawk stepped from the crowd, her silver hair now completely white but her step still sure. Behind her came others, wolves I didn't recognize, but whose bearing spoke of authority from far beyond this small pack. I am Elena Whitehawk, speaker for the old council, she announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the compound. We have come to witness the fulfillment of prophecy. The crowd murmured in confusion, but Alpha Marcus had gone very still. The old council was legend, the governing body that predated all modern pack structures, comprising the eldest and wisest of all supernatural beings. The shadow wolf has emerged, Elena continued, raised not in violence but in love. Not for conquest but for protection. The prophecy is clear, he will unite what has been divided and lead our kind into a new age. She turned to Luca, bowing her head slightly. If you will accept it, the council offers you recognition as Alpha Prime, leader not of a single pack, but of all who would follow the old ways into the new world. Luca was quiet for a long moment, shadows dancing around him like living thoughts. When he spoke, his voice held the weight of destiny. I accept, he said simply. But not alone. He moved to stand beside me, taking my hand in his much larger one. For 18 years, this woman has been my strength, my guide, my conscience. She who was called worthless has proved herself worthy beyond measure. She who was rejected has raised the future of our kind. His eyes swept the crowd, landing on each face that had once looked at me with contempt. If you would follow me, you will honor her. If you would join my pack, you will respect her. She is my mother in every way that matters, and through her wisdom, I will lead. The silence stretched until Alpha Marcus stepped forward. Pride warred with pragmatism on his face, but wisdom won. I submit to Alpha Prime Luca, he said, kneeling. And I ask forgiveness of the mother who raised him. One by one, the pack members followed suit. Even Amanda, her face streaked with tears of recognition and regret, knelt before the woman she had once tormented. Only Greer remained standing, his face a mask of rage and disbelief. This is madness, he snarled. She's nobody. Nothing. I was her mate, I know her worthlessness better than anyone. Luca's expression didn't change, but the temperature around us seemed to drop several degrees. "You were never worthy to be her mate," he said quietly. "And now you never will be. You can't." "I can, and I do. Greer, former mate of my mother, you are banished from this territory and all territories under my protection. You may leave with your life, but you leave alone and in shame." Greer's mouth worked soundlessly for a moment before he turned and stalked away, his humiliation complete. As the crowd dispersed, buzzing with excitement and awe, Luca and I stood together in the place where my exile had begun 18 years before. "Was I right to claim you as my mother so publicly?" he asked quietly, suddenly sounding young again despite his newfound authority. I reached up to cup his face, this magnificent young man who had grown from the frightened baby I'd carried through the night. "You were always my son," I said simply. "From the moment Celine placed you in my arms. Blood doesn't make a family, love does." He smiled then, the boyish grin I remembered from his childhood breaking through his serious expression. "Then we did it, Mama Iris. We kept our promise to her." "Yes," I agreed, looking around at the pack that had once rejected me and now knelt in respect. "We kept our promise." As the sun set over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. I had started as the pack's greatest failure, a wolfless woman who couldn't bear children. But in losing everything I thought I wanted, I had found everything I actually needed. Purpose. Family. Love. Strength. The child who had been entrusted to my empty arms had grown into a legend. And I, the broken, worthless she-wolf, had become the mother of the future itself. The emptiness I had once seen as my greatest shame had indeed been my greatest gift. In having nothing of my own, I had been able to give everything to him. And in raising him with love instead of ambition, I had shaped not just an alpha, but a leader who would change the world. As Luca began addressing his new pack, outlining his vision for a future where strength served wisdom rather than selfish ambition, I felt a familiar presence beside me. Celine's spirit seemed to whisper on the evening breeze, "Thank you, cousin. Thank you for proving that sometimes the greatest power lies not in what we can take, but in what we choose to give." I smiled, watching my son, our son, begin to reshape the world with the compassion I had taught him and the power he had inherited. The weakest had indeed sheltered the strongest. The voiceless had spoken words that changed everything. And those who had laughed loudest at my brokenness now served the future I had helped create. My story of rejection had become a legend of redemption. My emptiness had become the foundation of a dynasty. And in the end, the woman they called worthless had raised the most worthy of them all. The end.